1065? It's time now for Front Page Jacksonville, a show that delves into the issues that affect you. We believe in transparency and providing only the facts. And now, here's Octavius Davis.
Hey, welcome back. Glad that you joined me for another week here on Front Page Jacksonville. How has the week been for you? What did you get into? What new, fun, and exciting thing did you jump into? I'm curious. Feel free to call if you'd like to just share how your week has been. I would love to hear it, 833-758-1065. As for myself, the end of the month, I call it my meeting marathon. The last week of the month, I'm in meeting after meeting after meeting. And so with my day job, it's not physically taxing, but it is definitely mentally exhausting when you're in 8 meetings a day, talking about numbers and a whole lot of other stuff. So I'm happy once the weekend rolls up. Relaxation, I go for my weekend run, decompress, play a little Madden, of course, spend time with my wife and kids. And then I get a chance on Sunday mornings to hang out with you, which is always a joy and a pleasure. So I hope the week was enjoyable for you. Hope the weekend has been enjoyable as well, and you're all charged up and ready to tackle the week. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Today is a jam-packed show. If you follow me on social media, you already know. If you don't follow me on social media, what are you doing with yourself? Huh? What are you waiting on? On Facebook, you can follow me, Octavius Davis. Octavius. Please do not put that second O in my name. There's just one O. Octavius, Octavius, last name Davis, the traditional spelling. That's how you can find me on Facebook. That is how you can find me on LinkedIn. Now, Instagram, TikTok, is the $1 Million Voice. DA, $1 Million Voice, all one word. Okay? That's how you can find me on those different platforms. If you try to find me as the $1 Million Voice on Facebook, you're going to be sorely disappointed. But I promise I am more disappointed than you. So about 1.5 years ago, somebody hacked my Facebook page, and I created a page specifically for my brand, the $1 Million Voice. That's my brand. Well, someone hacked my personal Facebook page, so I no longer have access to the $1 Million Voice Facebook page. So if you follow that page, you will notice that there has not been any posts in the past 2 years. And there won't be any posts in the next 2 years because I can't access it. So Octavius Davis is how you can find me on Facebook. The $1 Million Voice is how you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. Oh, and one other platform. There is a show that you hear and a show that you see when it comes to Front Page Jacksonville. So the show that you hear is the one that you're listening to right now on Hot 106.5, Duval's only R&B. But also, the show is recorded, and it's available on YouTube. So you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. That one is also the $1 Million Voice. But you'll be able to go there and watch the full show. Also, the in-studio interviews that I have with guests, call-ins, the whole 9 yards. That's how you can follow along with Front Page Jacksonville. So let's get into it. Do you need anything whatsoever to convince you to not partake in a company potluck? Do you need any additional motivation whatsoever? Because if you do, I got something for you. Did you see or hear about what took place in Maryland this past week? 46 people were hospitalized. 46. So dozens of people were hospitalized this past week due to mass food poisoning at a Maryland wholesale seafood distributor. A total of 46 were sent to the area hospital. They all fell ill at NAFCO, that's NAFCO, wholesale seafood distributor in Jessup, Maryland. Now, I have people up in Maryland, so hopefully they weren't involved in this. But if you have loved ones in Maryland that were involved in this, I hope they get better soon. But apparently, the mass rash of illness was caused by a homemade dish that an employee brought into the workplace for sharing. You cannot trust everybody's cooking. Now, granted, fast food restaurants, sit-down restaurants, they're not exempt from this. But at least those establishments have to have certain licenses and codes that they have to follow, rules and regulations to help mitigate some of the cross-contamination and, food poisoning issues and things of that nature. Granted, we know that things still slip through the cracks, but there is no health food inspector at Sheila's house when she's cooking for the potluck. Joe been talking about the best ribs that he made. Hey, ain't nobody making any ribs better than him in Northeast Florida. Yeah, but he don't have no food handler's license because he's cooking out of his kitchen. And he's not live streaming when he's cooking. We don't know what's going on in that kitchen. So I'm going to say this two ways. Employees, let's stop eating at the company picnic. The company potluck. Employers, stop allowing company potlucks. Let's just stop. Stop. I've seen so many videos on TikTok of people doing things with their pets around food. It's enough to make you want to just fast for the rest of your life. Like, I'm not eating nothing else for the rest of my life because some people just nasty. Ew. Just downright nasty. And then they're going to bring that to the company potluck. Talking about, here, try this. No, I'm good. I'm just going to suck on my fingers for the rest of the day. I'm going to hydrate off my body's own saliva before I put your mystery meat in my body. Please stop eating at the company potluck. 46 people. I hope each of them get better if they have not already. But sheesh. So like I said, if you need additional motivation to encourage you to not partake in the company potluck, may that serve you well. This past Monday kicked off early voting. Have you voted yet? Have you voted yet? Have you decided who has earned your vote? And are you ready to cast your vote into the corridors of time? Whatever history is going to become of this, are you ready for it? 833-758-1065 is the number to call if you'd like to jump on Front Page Jacksonville. We got a few minutes to talk about it before our first guest joins us today. So I had an opportunity to vote this past week. I believe it was Friday. If you listened to the show last week, Wanda and I had a spirited sibling discussion about the ballot and voting and all of that good stuff. But here's the thing. So my wife and I, we both went to early vote. I get my ballot. I go into the voter's booth. And I said, all right, let me do what I've come to do. For the past couple of weeks, I have been pretty vocal about, not necessarily being enamored with either of the two candidates, but recognizing that, hey, the bear isn't on the ballot, so I got to choose between one of these two. So as I crack open my little folder that they give you with your ballots on the inside, much to my surprise, I saw a total of 6 presidential candidates on the ballot. And I'm standing there like, yo, hold up. You mean to tell me it's other people? Right? Wanda P in the background like, Hopper, who this? Yeah, who this? Where y'all been at? Granted, there has not been very many presidential debates, but where were you all during the first debate? I ain't seen y'all out on these social media streets. Because you mean to tell me that we have more than just these 2 candidates that are essentially being shoved down our throats? 6. There are 6 presidential candidates on the ticket. Now, hopefully, you'll have enough time between today's show and when you decide to go and vote to at least do some additional research on these other candidates, because I didn't have that type of time. And I definitely wasn't going to whip out my phone there in the voter booth, because they probably would have came and snatched my little ballot from me, like in, won't say that I cheated in high school on any tests, but I seen some folks' tests get snatched from them if they were involved in questionable behavior. So I want to at least share with you who these additional candidates are. Now, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's suspended. He's not eligible, so I'm just going to bypass him. But again, think about this, because for months now, whether it's Democratic, whether it's Republic, we have been essentially made to believe that we're painted into a corner with deciding whether it's going to be Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Regardless of which side of the fence you decide to vote on, that is your prerogative. Hey, I don't have any issue with that. You have to do what you believe is best for you and your family when it comes to your vote. However, if for some, if they're staking their claim on the, I believe, identity politics, if you're only voting for Kamala because she's perceived to be African American, and I say perceived because she's mixed, and honestly, I don't care. I don't care about any of that stuff. But if you do, and I've seen and have heard some people say, well, look, I'm voting for the sister. All right, cool. I don't have an issue with that. But did you know that Dr. Cornel West is also on the ticket? I knew you knew. Wanda, like, I knew, yeah, we knew you knew. You're a politic egghead. We know you knew. But Dr. Cornel West is on the ticket. Very quickly, here are his key policy issues. West has said he would pressure Israel into agreeing to a permanent ceasefire in Gaza and to withdrawing from Palestinian territory. He also said that he would cut off all U.S. aid to Ukraine and push to abolish NATO. He pledged to enact free health care for all U.S. residents. He has also said he would discontinue all oil and gas leasing projects on federal lands. He is committed to the payment of reparations to all black U.S. residents. His running mate for vice president, Melina Abdullah. She's an academic and civic leader, a tenured professor at California State University, and served as the chair of its Department of Pan-African Studies. She also served on the Los Angeles County Human Relations Commission. The other presidential candidate that's on the ticket, Jill Stein. Jill Stein. Now, I wasn't very familiar with Ms. Stein, so I'll give you a little background about her. Stein originally served as Cornel West's campaign manager during his brief stint as the Green Party candidate. But shortly after, he switched to an independent run. Now, I neglected to state this, so I'll correct it now. Dr. Cornel West is a part of the Independent Party. He's part of the Independent Party. Jill Stein is a part of the Green Party. Who? I know there was no Green Party. I thought it was just a red or a blue party. Now there's green in the mix. Now I've heard of independents before, but the Green Party, who are these people? Never heard of them. Picking up where I left off with Jill Stein. Shortly after he switched to an independent run, Stein stepped forward to seek the Green nomination herself. Her campaign has largely focused on combating President Joe Biden's support for Israel's war effort in Gaza In April, she was arrested at a protest at Washington University in St. Louis amid a nationwide series of boycotts calling for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Her policy issues. Stein has proposed a climate policy that goes further than progressive Democrats. Green New Deal. Green New Deal, that's the name of the policy. Pushing the U.S. to achieve zero carbon emissions on a faster timeline. She has pledged to withdraw U.S. support from Israel and Ukraine. She's in favor of guaranteed free public education from kindergarten through college. Sign me up for that. I can get down with that. That makes sense to me. It communicates how it helps to improve the lives for Americans. Stein has also said she would cancel all medical debt as well as double the number of Supreme Court justices and subject them to an 18-year term limit. I mean, come on. I understand people say, well, it's incumbent upon us to do the research. I agree. We are responsible for doing our own research. We are. But at the same time, come on. How can we research something if we don't know what we need to research? Have you ever heard of the Libertarian Party? Have you ever heard of the Libertarian Party? I'm not talking about you, Wanda. I know you've heard of it. Chase Oliver. He is the candidate for the Libertarian Party. Oliver has called for simplifying the pathway to citizenship for immigrants and expanding work visas. He's pledged to withdraw the U.S. from all foreign conflicts, including cutting support for Ukraine and Israel. He's in favor of eliminating the Federal Reserve. He's committed to federally decriminalizing marijuana use and pardoning all nonviolent drug offenders, and has said he will push Congress to decriminalize possession and use of all drugs. Look, man, if you're going out to vote this upcoming week, if you intend to vote this upcoming week, do some additional research on these other options that are out there. Now, here's the thing. For all we know, these other candidates may simply be on the ballot to split the vote.
Yeah.
Okay? But all I'm saying is it would be a lot more helpful if we were able to go into these voting situations with full information versus partial information. Hey, you're listening to Front Page Jacksonville. Coming up, our first guest this morning, she is a domestic violence abuse overcomer. So we'll have a chance to talk more with her in just a moment right here on Front Page Jacksonville. I'm Octavius Davis.
Front Page Jacksonville resumes on Hot 106.5.
October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And joining me today is an overcomer of domestic violence. She's a native of Jacksonville, but she now lives out in California. Miss Sarina Renee, how are you this morning?
I am doing amazing. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Now, let me state this real quick. First of all, thank you for joining me here on Front Page Jacksonville, because it is 6:24 a.m. in Jacksonville, Florida, but it is 3:24 right now on the West Coast.
Yes, sir.
And you grinding, because if I'm not mistaken, not only are you doing this interview, but you're like on your way to work. Sister girl working.
I have to present an award today for the HAPA Award. So it's a constant grind. You know, Hollywood is always on. So I'm here.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much. Sarina is an actress. She's a media personality, and you are also a domestic abuse overcomer. Sarina, talk to us for a moment about just that journey for yourself of what happened, what exposed you to domestic violence.
Well, what exposed me to domestic violence, let's talk about my childhood. I saw my mom get abused when she was, at a younger age. And I think I was about maybe 6. I was still in elementary school, and I used to always say, this would never happen to me. And like a lot of women, we always be like, yeah, this ain't never going to happen to me. And I never thought it would happen to me. So I ended up getting married. And, you know, it started off when I got married as verbal, financial, mental. And those are things that we don't talk about. So I really didn't know I was getting abused, you know, especially because, number one, you know, my ex-husband not only was an athlete, but he was also an evangelist in the church. So, you know, you'll have the elders of the church saying, oh, it's just the devil, and you know, things like that, or it's you two coming into one. No, that joker was just crazy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you take those things at face value, especially from leadership in the church, and you'd be like, okay, we're just going to keep praying, make sure everything is, you know, presented to the Lord so we can have some change. Change never happened. It got worse, you know? So from there, from the mental, the verbal, the financial, it finally went to physical. And then that's when I was like, nah, we ain't about this life.
Sure.
So at that point, I was just like, I'm done.
What was the if you recall, what was the amount of time that lapsed? So you mentioned it was stages: verbal, financial, mental, and then it transitioned to physical. What was that gap between the first forms of abuse that you were being exposed to before it culminated to the physical?
Well, you know, when we were dating, we only dated 6 months. I would never do that again. And I feel, again, you know, it was the pressure of the church because they were like, oh, it's better to marry than sin, which we wasn't even on that wave anyway. So we ended up getting married in 6 months. And after we got married, I want to say a couple weeks, almost 1 month after we got married, that's when he turned into Dr. Haskell and Mr. Hyde. Like, you couldn't tell me that this was a whole different person that I was dating, you know, because people can, you know, they can hide crazy in 6 months, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So basically, it started off with controlling. Oh, you can't, I don't want you being on social media. We have to have the same page. Oh, I don't want you doing this. You have to run stuff by me first. I'm your husband, so you can't do this. You can't do that, you know. And I'm like, what? Hold on. I ain't signed up for none of this.
Right.
You know. And then from there, it went from financial abuse. So I've always been a boss. I always had my own thing going. I always been an entrepreneur. And before we got married, he was like, I don't want you to work. I want to take care of you. Now, I've been working since I was 16. So when somebody tell you they just want to take care of you and that's your husband, you know,
sure,
why not?
You kind of relax in that a little bit. Absolutely.
Listen, let me relax in my femininity. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, cool. But I'm still not that type of person, you know. So I helped him. You know, he already had a nonprofit that he was just sitting on, and I helped him with everything from getting a TV show to anything that you saw in entertainment. That was me. Getting him booked for speaking engagements. So from that point, you know, I still expect to get paid, right?
Sure.
Because I'm not. I laid my career down for you. I'm not getting money like I used to. So I expect you to, you know, break me off with something. And that didn't happen. So when I went to him and I was like, hey, you know, you going to put me on payroll? This joker said, oh, I don't feel like I should put you on payroll because I'm taking care of everything in the house. And I'm like, what? Where they do that at?
Sure.
So it started to become very hard for me because you have this independent woman that was in her late 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, that never asked for anything. Now I have to go to my husband and say, hey, can I have money for this? Can I have money for that? That kind of broke me. It broke me down to my lowest because it was like basic necessities that I needed. I had to ask him. And if he's mad at me, he'll say no. I remember one time we ended up moving to Tampa because when we met in Jacksonville. And then we ended up moving into Tampa, and I remember we got in an argument over something really small, and I had to go to the grocery store that day. So this joker was like, listen, I'm not going to give you no money to go grocery shopping. I'm like, that's not only affecting me, it's going to affect you too, right?
Right.
He didn't care. I had to end up calling my dad because I ain't have no family at the time in Tampa. So I had to end up calling my dad and ask him for grocery money because my husband would not give me grocery money. That was so embarrassing to me.
Wow.
So...
You're listening to Front Page Jacksonville. I'm Octavius Davis. On the line right now is our guest, Sarina Renee. She is a domestic violence abuse overcomer. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And Sarina is sharing with us just her journey in terms of when she was exposed to domestic violence, but also how she overcame it. Now, before we delve into the overcoming part, I want to rewind for a moment because you mentioned that you were first exposed to domestic violence as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you have a daughter. Was your daughter exposed to the forms of abuse that you were experiencing?
Yeah, she actually was. And it was heartbreaking because I remember when we were in Jacksonville before we moved to Tampa, my god sister wanted to do, because I didn't have a wedding like I wanted. I didn't have the bridal shower. She was like, we'll just get married in the church like real quick. Like he wanted to do everything real quick. So he was like, that's what God wants, right? So me being young and trying to follow what quote unquote God told him to do for our marriage, I was like, okay. So after we got married, before we got married, my god sister was like, hey, I want to do a bridal shower for you. And he knew about it. And I can tell he was kind of like, a little uneasy about it or whatever.
Sure.
But when the time came for the bridal shower to happen, he was like, where are you going? And I was like, my god sister thanked this bridal shower, so I'm going there. And he was like, well, no wife of mine is going to be hanging out with, because at the time my god sister wasn't married, with single women. So I'm like, what is happening right now? What is happening?
Yeah.
So, you know what? I take it back. This was after we got married. This was like the first week. We got an argument about that. And I was like, okay, man, whatever. I want to go take a shower. And I remember that when I was taking the shower, he was still arguing with me. I ain't say nothing at that point. And he snatched the shower curtain down, exposing me. And he was like, if you go, then we gonna get a divorce or whatever. I was like, nigga, I'm saying in my head, I ain't say nothing to him. I'm like, dang, we just got married a week ago. Who is this person?
Right.
And I ain't say nothing. I just got out the shower, started getting dressed. He kept going. Then I went to my daughter's room to go get her because at this point, I don't even want to go to the bridal shower no more. I'm just trying to escape because clearly this dude is crazy. So he followed me in my daughter's room, and I'm getting her, some clothes gathered or whatever. And he followed me from her room all the way to the living room. And when he followed me in the living room, he got in my face like he was about to hit me. And my daughter has never been exposed to that at that point. She's never been exposed to violence. She was really green to the streets because I never raised her like that. So when she saw him coming towards me, like she screamed to the top of her lungs, and I can still hear it to this day. And she was like, Jesus! And I kind of grabbed her and, kind of pushed her out the way because I didn't know if he was trying to come at me and I didn't want her to be in a crossfire.
Right.
So that was her first time experiencing that. And then from there...
Was her reaction enough to stop him from doing what he was intending to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So after that, I still was trying to get out the house. I had the backpack and everything. Next thing you know, I'm going to the door to leave with me and my daughter. He's sitting on the floor crying. Please don't leave me. I apologize. That's just the enemy trying to break us up. And so my daughter, again, she was really little at the time. She was in elementary school. She was like, Mom, let's not leave. Dad's crying. And that's not really her dad, but that's what she called him.
Sure.
And she was like, Dad's crying. And I was like, and I looked at him, I was like, what you're not going to do is you're not going to play on my daughter's emotions. I told him to move, or I called the police, and he moved out the way. And that's when I didn't even go to the bridal shower stuff. I just went to my cousin's house, a cousin that he didn't even know. So he couldn't find me.
Sure.
And, that was the first incident. And I went down to the courthouse. I remember as plain as day, because he'd always be like, go get my papers within the first week. And I'm like, this dude is really, really crazy. So I was like, okay. I went down to the courthouse to go get a legal separation, but they told me back then, I don't know if the laws changed now, but they say you can't get a legal separation in Florida. Either you're married or you're not. So I sent him a picture, being Patty, and I was like, listen, I'm here. And he was like, oh, so you're going to break up our household, and we ain't even been married for a month. And I'm like, what is happening right now?
How long were the two of you married?
5 years.
5 years total. And so what you mentioned, when things transitioned, it became physical, that you finally made the decision to leave.
Mm-hmm.
What was that process like for you? Was it after that first incident you immediately removed yourself and moved forward with the divorce, or were there stages of finding the confidence to leave that you had to navigate?
It was stages because, again, like I said, I was young, and I haven't seen a successful marriage, so I didn't know what was what. I knew it didn't feel right. And what he did, because he's an evangelist, is he had his friends call me from the church. It was like, y'all need to go to marriage counseling because you two are trying to come into one. You come from a different environment, and you guys are clashing. So that's the only reason why I stayed as long as I did, right? Because of that. When it got physical is when we went to Tampa, and that was on our 5th year in 2017. And at that point, I was just like, I'm done. So it was actually stages. Sure. It was like, we got married in Jacksonville. We was in Jacksonville for maybe 4 months. Then we moved to Tampa. Actually, was it like 4 months? I think it was a little longer than that. Sure. Then we moved to Tampa. Tampa is where he played his best ball, in NFL or whatever. So he knew a lot of people, had a lot of connections. And again, I didn't have any friends out there. So he, at some point, tried to isolate me. Every person I tried to befriend, he was like, oh, they got a horse spirit. Everybody had a horse spirit.
Right. Well,
so the whole isolation type situation, it was very interesting. So it was definitely stages to the madness.
Well, and let's shift gears for a moment, because you did find the courage to leave. You overcame. You're still overcoming. Talk with us very briefly about Sarina Renee today. Now that you've left and you've been able to rebuild your life, what's everything that you're involved in?
Well, let's back up just a little bit as to why I left. So, I remember when God had me but he had me reading about Joseph and just studying, and I didn't understand why, because I'm like, Lord, you got me in this situation. Like, can I leave? I'm ready to go. Yeah. I mean, I know this ain't a you, right? So he's just like, I got you. I'm like, I don't even see how you got me at this point, So the following month, we end up moving to one of the wealthiest places in Tampa, downtown. And I remember that my ex-husband, he got a hip replacement surgery. And he was just so mean. And I was just like, what is happening with this guy? So he was able to, move around after a certain amount of time, and I had to take my daughter to her field trip. My car was down, so I asked him, can I use his car? So he was like, I'm gonna go with you. But I felt in my spirit that something wasn't right. So I was like, all right. So he came with me. He started starting an argument out of nowhere or whatever. Long story short, that argument ended up leading him putting his hands on me when we got home. So I ended up calling the police. The police came, The backstory is my ex-husband had a program in the jail system in Tampa, so he was well connected with the sheriff's office, the local politicians and things like that, which is one thing that he told me that he learned when he was locked up is how to dominate a city, is to make sure that you have the sheriffs on law, make sure you have local politicians. So they came, got my statement, seen the scars on my back and everything, right? So next thing you know, because I went downstairs to meet them, they went upstairs. Mind you, like I said, he just got hip replacement surgery, but this man been all over the place without no cane, right? They went upstairs. He put on all the theatrics, leaning on the wall, out of breath, talking about he's disabled with the cane. There's no way he could have did all that or whatever. And I remember one of the cops saying, "Hey, do you know?" And then he said my ex-husband's name. He was on his little microphone thing. And so the cop was like, yeah. He was like, "I think you want to come see this because this is a high-profile case." I'm like, oh, Lord, I already know what time it is.
Right.
So when the other cop came, I guess they didn't hear me. They didn't think I heard what they were talking about. And I was like, yeah, I think this dude got a program in our jail. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. So long story short, they remember who he was. They end up calling their supervisor. They told the supervisor, he's disabled with the cane or whatever because he's out of breath or whatever. And in the state of Florida, they said they had to take somebody for domestic abuse. So they told me that they had to take me because,
wow. Because of his involvement. Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Well, I tell you what, Sarina, we are going to have to bring you back for a part 2 of this story because we have our other guest on standby. We have to get you back for a part 2. Would you at all be available to come back on to continue your story with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Outstanding. Well, very quickly, share with our listeners how they can get in contact with you if they'd like to share words of encouragement or possibly even get guidance from a domestic violence situation they may be in.
Yeah, so you can actually follow me on Instagram at Sarina, Sarina _813. That handle again is Sarina, Sarina _813.
Excellent. Sarina Renee, thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Front Page Jacksonville. Also, if you are finding yourself in a domestic violence situation, please get with someone whom you can trust and leave. Get to a secure place. Thanks, Sarina. Thanks for hanging out with us today on Front Page Jacksonville. 833-758-1065 is the number to call if you'd like to jump on Front Page Jacksonville. So the month of October, there are several awareness months throughout the month of October, one of which you just heard us speak about Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but there's also National Estate Planning Month. And so our next guest is with us today by phone, coming to us from Atlanta. Attorney Amber Saunders is going to help us get our estate planning game up. Good morning, Attorney Saunders. How are you today?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Doing excellent, thank you. Well, I know it's an early morning, but see, Sarina, she's on the West Coast, so it's like 3 o'clock her time. But you in ATL, you right up the street, so it's almost 7 o'clock your way. So hopefully you've had a chance to get a little coffee in your system before jumping on Front Page Jacksonville.
Absolutely. I can't do anything without coffee first.
Well, let's get right on into it, Attorney Saunders. National Estate Planning Month is going on right now in the month of October. And so what exactly is estate planning?
Estate planning is essentially telling your loved ones or everyone really what you want done with your assets, with your legacy, with your memories, whatever you have after you're gone away. That's it.
And so with that dynamic, let's talk about how estate planning is essential within the African American community. And so before we get into that, let's just kind of talk about some things that we know happens within the African American community. Where life insurance, we may or may not have some, and a will, we may or may not have one. So in the instance as it relates to a will, how strong is a will, especially when you speak about probate court?
So when you have a will, it has to go through probate court. Now, depending on where you live, what state. There are some rules that make it a little easier. Some rules might make it a little more difficult. But at the bare minimum, a will is necessary so that they know exactly who you want to inherit, whatever you outline. Anything that's in your name, your bank account, anything that you have that is titled to you will go through probate court unless there's a beneficiary attached to it. So like you mentioned, life insurance, they have beneficiaries. Those things can pass outside of probate court. On your bank account, if you have a beneficiary listed or a payable on death, it can pass outside of probate court. But like your home, unless you have someone else that you, during your lifetime, had them listed on the title to your home, which we don't necessarily want you to do,
sure.
Then it will go through probate court. So you have to have some sort of will to say who that goes to, what percentages you want them to have, things like that.
And so now when estate planning comes into the mix, what are some of the different things that makes up an estate?
Okay, so you need there are essential documents that should be there. So there can be a will. If you want things to pass outside of probate court so that, a judge who doesn't know you or your family doesn't have any say-so or any input, you can get a trust, which will separate those things and it won't have to go through probate court. So a will or a trust, a healthcare directive, which if you are incapacitated in any way and need to let people know what to do with your body, that you don't want to be resuscitated, that you don't want to be on life support, things like that, you need a directive or a living will. You need a power of attorney. You can get in a car accident, driving down the highway, and you're in a coma. Someone needs to be able to pay bills, take care of your financial affairs. So you need a durable power of attorney for them to be able to do that. And then if you have minor children, you need guardianship documents because a court's going to have to decide who gets guardianship over your children if something happens to you, if you don't try and outline that before you go.
Now, Attorney
so those
Saunders,
are the basic ones.
Now I like to keep it a buck. I got to keep it a buck with you. Right. How easy is it to establish a trust? And here's why I ask this question. I've been looking to establish a trust for my family for the past year. But I come across people on social media like, yeah, I could hook up that trust for you, this, that, and the third. I'm like, no, I don't trust you, Joker. I wouldn't trust you to make a honey dripper, let alone establish a trust. So I know that there is an irrevocable trust, there's a revocable trust, but there are so many different dynamics that goes into forming a trust. What do we need to know? What do I need to know about selecting someone to form a trust for my family?
Oh, I would definitely make sure that they have a law degree because then you have some sort of repercussions, right?
Right.
I had someone come in my office who paid $6,000 to someone who she met on Instagram for a trust. And when I looked at it, it was in when you graduate from high school and you get that diploma, it was in one of those little diploma things.
Oh, no, not was it ICDC? Was that what Little Romeo was, that ICDC school? Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what it looked like, right? And I mean, people aren't, they're trying to, I can't knock you for trying to educate people about certain things, but you can't really get a binding trust. That's the unauthorized practice of law. So get a lawyer to do it first. But number two, most people do not need an irrevocable trust. So an irrevocable trust is going to be taxed at the highest tax rate, which is around 40%. So if you put all your assets in that trust, then they're going to be, if you try and sell it, you're going to get taxed at a higher rate, and you lose a level of control over your assets because you can't be the trustee over an irrevocable trust. Most people don't need that.
Right.
You just get a revocable living trust. You're still the trustee at the time that you pass away. Then there's a successor trustee who takes over, and it's irrevocable on everyone after that. So they can't come back and change it. They can't come back and say, oh, this is what my dad really wanted, something like that. So you don't want it irrevocable during your lifetime in most circumstances for the general public. But the trust allows you to be able to tell people what to do with what you had. So if you have it just pass through probate court through a will, when your minor child turns 18, the court's going to give them everything you left to them. So then your 18-year-old might be trying to go buy a Lamborghini with that whatever you left.
Right.
As opposed to you put it in a trust, you can say this money can go towards school, and it has to go towards school because it doesn't belong to them. They are only the beneficiaries of it. So you can parent from beyond. You can say, this is how I want you to do this, and kind of dictate. You might not want to have, heavy guardrails around it to give them some freedom to use it, but you can say how and when they will have access to it and incentivize the kind of behavior you want. You can't do that through a will because they're just going to give it away because the courts don't want to manage it after you're gone for that long.
You're listening to Front Page Jacksonville. I'm Octavius Davis. My guest on the phone right now is Attorney Amber Saunders, educating us on the importance of establishing an estate. October is National Estate Planning Month. Now, Attorney Saunders, within the African-American community, someone may be hearing this right now and say, okay, that sounds all copacetic. We're talking about having a trust and having money for kids, but financially, I don't have it like that to set up no trust, so I don't know if this is for me. So when you speak about families where there may be some concerns as it relates to finances, what would you say to that family who may feel that a trust is out of reach or not necessary for their family dynamic?
It might not be, and only they can really say. There isn't a certain asset level that's necessary to set up a trust. It's really about what you want to happen after you're gone. If you feel like your children are going to act a fool, you might want to put something together. Right? If you feel like, and people come into the office and say, oh, I think my kids will be fine, but I've seen siblings not talk to each other anymore because their parents did not set up something and they thought that one child was treated better or got more and they fought in court. So at the bare minimum, you need to have a will because it will say exactly what you wanted, and that they have to do it. There's no way around it. So at bare minimum, they need to get a will. But I want them to think in the context of what Black people have gone through in the United States. At the time of emancipation, Black people had roughly a few years after that, 16 to 19 million acres of land in the United States, compared to the 3 million that we have now.
Wow.
Now, there are a ton of reasons why and things that went into why we lost that land, but a significant amount of that is because of heirs property. Because my grandmother had 17 siblings. So then if land was left to them and it went to the 17, then it went to their children and it wasn't passed down in a way that that it made sense for them to participate, then that 127, they're not going to go back to probate court and try and save the land that they might not make that much money on or pay the taxes on it or do any of those things. And so then that land can get taken in a tax sale, property sale through all of those things. So we can make sure we can do something a little bit better so that the next generation has a little bit of a step forward, as opposed to us continuing to lose the assets that we have because we just think it will take care of itself. It won't if we don't say what we want to be done with it.
I read that my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, but my people do not have to be destroyed for a lack of knowledge. We got Attorney Amber Saunders available to help us navigate these waters when we speak about wanting to set up our family for generational wealth. Attorney Saunders, how can our listeners get in contact with you if they'd like for you to hook them up and avoid the Instagram scammers?
They can reach me on Instagram at Ask Amber Saunders. Our website is www.thesaundersfirm.com or 678-680-4336.
Now, Attorney Saunders, I said we want to avoid the Instagram scammers, and you send them to Instagram. Come on now. I'm teasing with you.
If they already on there looking, I just want to make sure I'm there too.
Absolutely. That's Attorney Amber Saunders. Be sure to check her out. I will definitely be following up with you because, as I stated, my wife and I, we've been looking to establish a trust, but I haven't trusted nobody that I've come across so far. But the information that you share has been very helpful, and definitely looking forward to having a conversation with you as it relates to our family dynamic. Any final words before we close out today, Attorney Saunders?
That your estate plan is the last love letter you get to write to your family. So I want you to make sure it's a good one. That's it.
Oh, Good words to leave us on. Thank you so much, Attorney Saunders. Thanks for hanging out with us on Front Page Jacksonville.
Broadcasting from the Anna Jar Levine Studios. Anna Jar Levine Accident Attorneys. Call 1-800-747-FREE.
That's 1-800-747-3733.
WHJX, Ponte Vedra Beach, Hot 106.5. Always connecting the community to events, concerts, and more. Download our free Hot 106.5 app to your phone and stay updated. We are Hot 106.5, Duval's only R&B.
I want to hip you to some very quick game. Did you know before Hollywood traveled to Hollywood, California? Now, when I say Hollywood, I'm talking about the film industry. Before the film industry, known as Hollywood, traveled to California, they were attempting to set up shop right here in Jacksonville, Florida. As a matter of fact, during that silent film era, a lot of films were made right here in Jacksonville, Florida. Well, my guest in the studio right now is continuing in the spirit of that long, rich history of filmmaking here in our great city of Duval. Back then, it used to be Calford, but Calford just doesn't sound good. Calford, you see, the chant just don't sound right. It don't quite flow, right? But joining me in the studio, I have Carlos Smith II. He is the director of the sci-fi film, The Future Soul. Carlos, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Man, I'm feeling great, man. How you doing, sir?
Cannot complain one iota. We also have Giovanni in the studio with us as well. Giovanni, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing excellent. Thank you. So, Carlos, let's get into it. Before we talk about the film and the inspiration behind The Future Soul, what led you to filmmaking?
Honestly, just watching movies in general. Like, I always wondered how they did it, how they created these films, and I just enjoyed the storytelling. I just enjoyed it. Was just something I loved to do. I was just a big movie watcher back in the day, so I've always wanted to learn how to do it on my own. And it wasn't until my 18th birthday that I actually stepped into that journey. Purchased the camera, and I just kept going from there.
Are you self-taught, or did you go to school to learn those different trades?
Mainly self-taught. I did take a couple classes here and there just to kind of learn a little bit more, but mostly self-taught.
So now here it is. You went on your 18th birthday, bought your first camera. What was the first project you began working on?
It was like some high school video. Like I was just recording my friends in high school. It was like a mini documentary kind of thing, just kind of capturing memories. So that was like my first, technically my first project.
Okay.
But I didn't do my first short film until 2009, actually.
What was the first short film?
It was literally called Weird Together Day. It was a weird project, but it was just something I learned how to do.
And so here it is now. You've put together your first. Well, I don't want to assume. Is this your first feature film?
Actually, my first feature film was back in 2013.
Yep.
But this is my first sci-fi.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So sci-fi, and that's where I want to go, because earlier I teased and said that, you ain't gonna see no bad Tyler Perry wigs in your production. So brother, don't make a lie out of me. Please don't put a bad Tyler Perry wig in your next movie, right? But why sci-fi?
It's just something I want to do. Like, it was something different. I wanted to do something I've never done before, because everything I've done prior to that was like the action films, the drama stuff, and I've even done horror a couple times, but I've never done sci-fi, and I'm a huge fan of it. So I just wanted to kind of like spill into that platform and that genre and see what I can do with it. Miraculously turned into a great story.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going from there.
And joining us in the studio as well, we have Giovanni with us. So Giovanni, tell us a little bit about your story.
And acting in general.
Yeah.
So I actually, I've been doing like church plays here and there growing up, small school plays. I went to a private school, so it was like a small setting when it came to it. But as I got older, I went to college for theater, and I took it there. And it really was more of a confirmation once I got in college to just know that this is my path, this is my passion, my drive, and this is what I wanted to go for. So from there, honestly, I realized networking is a big thing, because meeting one person leads to another.
Absolutely.
And then meeting somebody that I actually met going for an audition, I ended up meeting Carlos, and then I went from there to audition, and I got the part. So
now, what role do you play?
I play Kelly in Future Soul, which is Andre's wife.
So The Future Soul, right? We have one of your actors here in the studio with us. tell us about the two. We got two, my man.
Two of them, actually.
Two.
All right, we got two of the cast members of the Future Soul in the studio with us today. What was the inspiration for the Future Soul?
That would be my sister Sierra. She had passed away in 2020, and I've always wanted to do a film that would honor her in a sense. So, and plus, always wanted to do a time travel story. So I think those two together was like the perfect blend, and that's what really birthed the story.
Yeah. So you teased a little bit about time travel. All right. We also mentioned that it's a sci-fi.
Yes, sir.
So share with the listener about what the movie is about, but don't tell what.
Don't give away too much.
About. Yeah.
So on the base form of this storyline, so it does follow a person named Andre, that's played with my guy LaShawn Rice Jr. He basically living his best life, and what happened was he decided to time travel because his past got exposed and his reputation went down the drain, plummeted basically, and he was just basically desperate to get his life back together. So time travel was the thing he wanted to do, and unfortunately the time machine glitches, switching place with his younger self 5 years back.
So his younger self comes to the future and he gets stuck in the past.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I can see how some problems can come about from that.
Yeah. Oh man.
And so, Giovanni, your character in this story, does she get caught in between the paradox of the past and the present as well, or? She's
actually only aware of her timing. So even when the switch changed, she was still on her time of thinking they were married and so forth on. So she was like out of the picture of knowing what was really going on.
Wow. Well, I want to get the perspective from our other cast member in the studio as well. Yeah, come on to the microphone. Step up to the mic. Yeah.
Can I turn it? All right.
Hey, you here? Why not?
Yeah, come on. Y'all probably told in the car, no, you don't have to worry. You don't have to say nothing at all. Psychoberry.
Well, I outed her, so sorry.
Yeah, blame it on Wanda P. So just go ahead and swing the mic towards you a little bit more. Share with us your name, but then also your role in the film.
Hi, my name is Lakeisha Monet, and I play the role of Tyra in the Future Soul.
And who is Tyra in relation to the person getting stuck in the past and the present, and how all this come about? What is your character's main role?
Well, my main role, I am Andre's best friend / business partner, and basically, me and Andre we was together the whole movie. So I was in everything when he went forward and when he went back. So yeah.
So you're aware of.
Yeah, I'm aware of everything. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So, Carlos, with this film, it's a little different.
Yes, sir.
Than what some would expect from an African American film director. So you mentioned that you've always been a fan of sci-fi. What is it that you're hoping this film will allow you to accomplish?
Just number one, just unlocking what my just unlocking my bigger capabilities, number one. And two, the biggest thing that's most important to me is just making a huge impact in the city. Just doing my part, and also just growing with the Future Soul families. That's what I call them, and also just showing what's possible.
Yeah. Now, you recently did a film premiere.
Yes, sir.
Right. At one of the local theaters. Walk us through that experience of just for yourself to be able to have the film debut, but then also with your cast. What are you all now seeing that the film is available?
So the premiere itself, first of all, it was amazing. It was definitely amazing. It was a fun time. It was surreal for me, to be able to celebrate it with everybody. We got to ride the party bus kind of thing. And, we just all, celebrated each other and everybody that was there with us. It was a lot of people in there. And I didn't even get to talk to everybody. It was people that were there that I know that I didn't know they were there kind of thing. So it was surreal. It was really, really nice. And then now, of course, everybody asking when it's coming out digitally, which I'm anticipating early 2025.
Okay.
Just getting some special edition version of the film done, basically. So I'm adding some extra stuff to it. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Any thoughts on your next project?
I don't want to spill anything right now. Those that saw my last film will know.
Okay.
What's next.
So there is something on the horizon.
Yes.
Right. You
yes,
have
sir.
another project on the horizon. How do you go about selecting your cast? Do you have like regular auditions and things of that nature? If someone is listening and they want to get involved with what you have going on, how can they go about that?
So even to this very day, a lot of people do ask about when's your next film audition, things like that. And I typically just put out the information via social media, Facebook, Instagram, things like that. And I just usually just put the information out. And then what I typically do from there, so even with this project specifically, we did the casting call for Future Soul back in February. And I had the flyer out, the roles that's available, the age range, ethnicity, everything that you need to know would be on that flyer, basically. And I just keep sharing it until the day of.
Yep. So I want to rewind for a moment.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned about your inspiration for this film. Can we talk a moment to highlight and celebrate the life of your sister? You say she passed in 2020. In
2020, yes.
Why was her influence so significant on you?
Because she was like one of my biggest supporters when it comes to my film life, in a sense. So it was obviously a dark time for me. So and I just felt like I had to express that in the form of a film one day, and something that the family could be proud of. And she had 2 kids. And the person that played, and I actually had a character based on her. Shout out to Miss Angel Simone. She played her. She reminded me of my sister when she played her. So it was surreal. But yeah, it was very important for me because at the end of the day, this is one of the things I have that I can express myself to a place where people can understand where I'm coming from, and just got to keep her name alive. That's just one thing I always thought about doing. So
tell us about her. What made her laugh? What made you attach yourself to her so closely? Because you mentioned she was one of your biggest supporters.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. Her kids, she had 2 kids. We pretty much grew up together. Like, she was like a year younger than me, so of course we grew up in school together, things like that. She was my younger sister. I'm the oldest of all of my siblings. She was a younger sibling, but she was always that protective sister, too.
Yeah.
So if anybody coming to me sideways, she's like the tough one.
See about it.
Yeah, she's the tough one, you know what I mean? So she was a tough person, so... but yeah, and then we're both a fan of Bad Boys. We both love Bad Boys movies, always in the horror films, things like that. So, we had so much conversation growing up, and... So, yeah, we were really close, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I said when she left, I said one day I'm going to have to kind of honor that. Got to.
Yep. If she were here and she had an opportunity to see the Future Soul, what do you believe she would say?
She would love it, and she would want to meet the person that played her. You know what I mean? Her kids got to see it, though. Nice. Her kids got to see it, and then... so it was, her kids getting a chance to see the movie, and my family got a chance to see, my dad, my auntie, my cousin, and a lot of people said the person that played my sister reminded them of her. So I'm like, wow, like this was, and then even with Miss Angel, the lady that played her, she also had a similar tragic situation. Her brother passed away. And she said I reminded her of him. Oh, wow. So I'm like, wow. That's surreal. That blew my mind. And I was like, that was meant to happen. So, but yeah, it was a beautiful connection that happened out of everything. And then at the end of the day, everybody was very proud of it.
Certainly. So how can people see the film, The Future Soul?
Oh, yes, sir. So, like I said, I'm currently doing a special edition version of it now. Where I'm anticipating to release it digitally on first quarter of 2025. So probably like January-ish, February at the very latest. Because I'm adding some... I'm gonna give y'all a quick little behind the scenes.
Just a little. Just give a little taste.
Tell nobody.
I ain't gonna give you the spoiler of the movie, but I will say the special edition will include footage from so you know how you watch movie credits and they show behind the scenes. Yeah. That's what I'm adding.
I got you.
So so I'm adding the premiere footage behind the scenes. I'm adding the interviews that we've done, things like that, just to kind of give an extra incentive to watch the credits, just to give y'all. And then I'm adding one of the deleted scenes on there too. So, yeah, some special content is gonna be on there. So
a couple of surprises coming once The Future Soul finally releases to digital. Before you head out, Carlos, what's one takeaway you would want viewers of the film to walk away with?
Just watch the choices you make in your life because it will come back to you. Right. That's the biggest thing I always say. So,
Giovanni, same question. What's one takeaway you would want the viewer to walk away with as it relates to your character?
Honestly, like he said, be mindful of your decisions and, thinking about your future and what's to come of your actions now. So, yeah.
And Keisha, we coming back to you. What's one takeaway, especially because your character is fully aware of what's happening in that situation? What's one takeaway you would want the viewer to walk away with?
I mean, basically picking back off of what
so
they
you're gonna
said.
be a copycat?
No, wait. And then, just knowing that, family is everything. At the end of the day, your family's gonna always be there for you no matter what. And yeah, y'all stick together.
A copycat. That's
Right.
You just copied the same thing you just said.
An extra note too, though. I do have an extra note. So I also want to give out a shout out to Todd Jackson Jr. He played AJ. AJ is actually based on my stepbrother, who also passed away while I was writing the script. And then Lakeisha actually plays a character based on my real life sister, Tyra, which she's living, but I have a real life sister named Tyra, and that's who she's based on.
Wow.
So, and she hasn't seen it yet because she's way in Texas and she's a mother now, you know what I mean? But I just wanted to just point that out as well. So I have like a lot of inspirations on this film, but yeah, that could be a whole
I'm
conversation.
a blast.
She's a blast. She's a blast.
Homegrown, right here from Jacksonville, filmmaker, diving into the sci-fi film genre along with two actresses in the studio, and all of that comes together to bring you The Future Soul. So if you would go ahead and follow on social media. What are the social media handles?
So my actual social media, like my personal one, is Cas2 Films, at Cas2 Films on Instagram. That's CAS2 Films. And we also have a Future Soul page as well, which is at Future Soul Movie. That's on both Instagram and Facebook. Facebook is LOS2K6. Same with YouTube. So those are my handles and channels.
And we got to show love to the crew. How can the listeners follow you on social media?
So you can follow me, Giovanni Valiente, on Instagram at realtor_Gio, and then I am just Giovanni Valiente on Facebook.
Please spell Valiente, because I have no clue. How do you spell Valiente?
So Valiente is VALIENTE. Valiente.
Got it. Copycat McGee.
Oh my God. Tough.
My Instagram is therealkiki._. I don't really be on Facebook like that, but my Facebook is Monet Chanel. Period.
Right. There you have it. It is the cast and crew of The Future Soul. Be sure to follow them on social media. But more importantly, once the film drops, let me ask, once the film drops, what are the different platforms they'll be able to watch the film on?
The top two for sure would be like Tubi and Amazon. That'll be the top two.
Tubi!
Hey, but it won't be your typical Tubi movie though. It'll be one of them quality Tubi movies. I'm just putting it out there.
Right.
It's a quality Tubi movie.
We appreciate the disclaimer.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
for the disclaimer.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's Carlos Smith II. The Future Soul is the name of the film. Be sure to support them once the film drops, and of course follow them on social media so that you can continue to support other projects that they have coming up down the road. Hey, there's more coming your way. In just a moment, we're going to speak with Dr. Felicia Phillips. And if you didn't know, you're about to find out, because October is also National Women's Small Business Month. This is Front Page Jacksonville. I'm Octavius Davis.
Now back to the show that informs you and discusses the issues. Front Page Jacksonville on Hot 106.5.
You know, I love connecting with different people here in Jacksonville. There are so many interesting skill sets, whether it be the art community, whether it be the business community, whether it be the nonprofit community. There are so many micro communities throughout the city of Jacksonville that I believe are absolutely phenomenal. So just once again want to give a shout out to Carlos Smith II for his film, The Future Soul, that we were discussing before this last break. I want to transition for a moment because it looks like this is a situation that still has not been resolved. And this is now the second incident involving someone right here in Jacksonville who's become a victim of a hit and run. 3 weeks ago, Alasia Williams, the 17-year-old Ed White High School senior, was struck by a vehicle as she walked to the bus stop. Unfortunately, Alasia passed away from that accident. But now we have another situation that just transpired a few days ago. October 22nd, Miss Roby Roberts was struck by not one, but two vehicles while on her morning walk. And unfortunately, the driver of the first vehicle that struck Miss Roberts has not yet come forward. When Miss Roberts was struck by the first vehicle, that led to the second vehicle striking her. And thankfully, the driver of that second vehicle stopped, got out, and was actually the one who called 911 so that they could help Miss Roberts. Miss Roberts is still in the hospital. She's still fighting. So I definitely want to send my thoughts and prayers with the family right here and right now. But I also want to send thoughts to whomever the driver of that first vehicle was. I understand that you may be scared. I would like to believe you're feeling some sort of remorse from what transpired. But please come forward. I'm sure you have loved ones. I'm certain if you were in Miss Roberts' situation, you would want someone to come forward and say, hey, it was an accident. I was the one involved in that situation. This is someone's mom, daughter, friend, loved one who's now fighting for her life. And though we don't yet know what the outcome is going to be, they deserve closure. They deserve an opportunity to have the questions in their mind answered. And you have an opportunity to provide that to them by simply stepping forward and have a conversation with officials. Help them be able to bring all the pieces together in this investigation. So while we're trusting, praying, and believing that Sister Roberts will be able to fully recover, a part of that recovery process is also going to be having questions answered. So if you know of anyone, if you know someone who think they may know who was involved in this, please say something. Come forward. Please come forward. The family deserves to have their questions answered. But Miss Roberts, she deserves an opportunity to know that she means more than just being left on the side of the road like you would an animal if you were to strike them. So please come forward if you were indeed involved in that accident that now has Sister Roberts in the hospital. We've talked about several different things on today's show. Now, I mentioned the month of October is littered with awareness months. So we spoke about National Estate Planning with Attorney Amber Saunders. We spoke about domestic violence awareness with Sarina Renee. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to get Dr. Felicia Phillips on to talk about National Women's Small Business Month. The month of October is also National Youth Voice Month. If you're not familiar with National Youth Voice Month, this is the month where youth who are in foster care, they have an opportunity to let their voices be heard. This is the month for that. This is the month for that. So a lot of different awareness months happening throughout October. October is busy. October is a pretty busy month. So if you'd like to jump in the conversation and comment on any of the different topics that you've heard discussed during today's show, 833-758-1065 is the number to call. That's 833-758-1065. If you missed the very beginning of the show, I'm going to go back to it because I think this is one of those things that we can afford to spin the block on. This is one of these conversations we can afford to regurgitate. Because I shared at the top of at the beginning of the show that early voting kicked off this past Monday. I and my wife, we had an opportunity to go vote. So I went, I showed my ID to make sure I was at the right voting precinct rather. They gave me my little Scantron sheet. You remember Scantron sheets back in the day when We used to take tests and whatnot. Now, quick heads up for you. You do not want to abacadabra your voting ballot. Please don't abacadabra the voting ballot. If you don't know what abacadabra means, then you are probably a highly intelligent student. But if you do know what abacadabra means, then you and I, we're on the same page. That's Christmas treeing. Abacadabra. A-B. My producer, Jack, in the studio, he's shaking his head. Jack, he's a college student. He understands what abacadabra means, right? You do not want to abacadabra your voting ballot. So I crack open the folder. I look at my Scantron sheet of the different things that I'm now charged with making a decision on as an American citizen. And the very first section is for the presidential election. And for weeks, I've been vocal about stating that I'm a little undecided because there are things on both sides of the fence with the two candidates that I'm seeing that I'm not necessarily in love with. And much to my surprise, I went in with the thought of, okay, Octavius, it's time to put up or shut up. What is going to be? But I didn't see two presidential candidates on the ballot. I saw 6 presidential candidates on the ballot. 6. And my first thought was, wait a minute. You mean to tell me there are other options that we have at our disposal for president? Where have these individuals been? Why haven't we seen them on the presidential debates? But yes, there are other candidates. There are other candidates on the ballot. Dr. Cornel West, he is a presidential candidate for the Independent Party. Jill Stein, she is a presidential candidate for the Green Party. I didn't know there'd be no Green Party. I just thought it was elephants and donkeys, Democrats and Republicans, red and blue. But there is a Green Party. And then Chase Oliver, he is the presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. So I want to encourage you, if you intend to early vote, please be sure to research before going to the voting polls so that you can make a decision based off of full information versus partial information. And Wanda, you shared a tip earlier. Was it the sample ballot?
Yes.
So you have an opportunity to look at your sample ballot before going to the polls, because you had an opportunity to get your sample ballot.
Yeah, so a lot of time, well, in Duval County, I know, and probably the other counties as well, they mail you your sample ballot. So that gives you an opportunity to look at what it's going to be like when you get to the polls. And then you can also go, for instance, in Duval, go to DuvalElections.com. Because I believe a sample ballot can be there as well. So all the information is there. So it's a way for you to educate yourself on what's going to be. And y'all, please vote down the ballot. Just don't vote for the presidential candidate and then just be out. You know, there are some amendments that are up that we need to be voting for. There's also school board in Duval County. There is state senators that need to be selected and voted on. So go down the ballot. Take a moment to just kind of educate yourself. And then I know there are people like State Senator Angie Nixon and Tracy Davis. They have on their social media released what they're encouraging people to vote for. So if you follow these ladies, for instance, and there are probably others, you know, and you like what they stand for or whatever and trust their judgment and their picks, then you can follow that advice. You know, and there might be others, but those are just some ways for you to be able to know what's on the ballot, for you to learn how you should vote and the like.
To be forewarned is to be forearmed. So thank you so much, Wanda, for sharing that information with us.
No problem.
Powerful information from a powerful woman who also referenced some other powerful women here in our community, Angie Nixon, Tracy Davis. And it's an excellent segue, Wanda, because as I mentioned a moment ago, October is National Women's Small Business Month.
I did not know that. There's so many, I didn't know that.
Well, go ahead and put the headphones on because we have Dr. Felicia Phillips on the line with us right now, who's going to talk with us about this Awareness Month. Dr. Phillips, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Doing excellent. Thank you so much. Now, Dr. Phillips, Wanda and I, neither of us knew that October was National Women's Small Business Month. Talk to us about the significance of this particular Awareness Month.
You know, I think most people overlook the fact that women-owned small businesses represent about $1.8 trillion in revenue in the United States.
Yeah.
And they are responsible for more than 12 million jobs. So that's pretty significant, right? And the biggest challenge is that we still have a lot of ground to cover, even with that.
That's an excellent point because I did some research. I wanted to find out how many women small-owned businesses there are here in Jacksonville. I couldn't find that number. Now, I was able to see that there are nearly 18,000 small businesses in Jacksonville, but I wasn't able to niche it down specifically to women. So when you speak about there being more ground to cover, you are absolutely right. So what are some of the benefits that National Women's Small Business Month can help women better understand as they either seek to grow their business or start their first business?
So, great question. I'm going to break that down in two parts.
Sure.
The first thing is, if you are looking to start a business, one of the first things that I will tell you is that the Small Business Administration, which you can access by going to sba.gov, has tons of opportunities for small businesses. And if you are an existing small business owner, you can also go to that same website, because what I want to encourage you to do is to get the certification for the woman-owned small business. It's the WOSB certification. Now, the reason I'm telling both groups to go to SBA.gov is because for the individuals who are looking to start a business, everything you need to know about your small business is there. And they can go to the local small business office there in Jacksonville, make an appointment, go down there. There are tons of free classes. They also what they call APEX, APEX. And what APEX does is that it gives you the resources and the tools you need to do business with the government and to make sure that you are securing a proper foundation for your small business. Here's what we know. Most women go into business out of necessity and not opportunity.
Sure.
And so when you do that, you're very excited, right? So you're kind of leading with your heart. But what we know is that does not pay the bill.
Come on. Say it again, huh? Yes, ma'am.
It does not pay the bill.
Right.
So we want to make sure that foundationally that they have their business set up properly. You know, the worst thing is to get excited about getting some business and then realize that you don't have everything in place, and so you can't take advantage of the opportunity. And then that second piece for your existing small business owners, what I want them to know is by getting the WSB certification, that moves them up the food chain when it comes to contracts and opportunities. Right. And that's the biggest thing. We want to make sure our pipelines are filled.
Yeah.
Now, when you speak about contracts, is that like doors wide open, government contracts, municipal contracts, et cetera?
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it. So here's the beautiful thing for women-owned small businesses. So when you think about federal contracting, and this is why I mentioned the SBA, it can be very complex. But between the SBA and they have what they call the SBDC, and that's the Small Business Development Center. They have maybe 2 or 3 different organizations that specifically help small businesses. because there are so many nuances, like you have to get your business registered in sam.gov and all of these things, I want people to know the right way and not listen to others who say, oh, I can help you get, small business, federal contracting, and I can help you get contract. Go to the source.
Right.
And that is so key.
Here's the other thing. It's free.
Yeah, and that is so key because, to your point, I spend probably more time than I should on TikTok, but nonetheless, I find myself there. And on social media, you have a lot of different people who say, "Oh, well, I can teach you how to do XYZ if you pay XYZ to buy my course to show you how to get government contracts and this, that, and the third." Yeah. So, with the things that you're sharing, Dr. Phillips, that women can do to properly build a strong foundation for their business in an effort to grow a successful and sustainable business, how can they get in contact with you if they would like to get additional guidance and information?
And before she answers that, I have one question for you, Ms. Phillips. The process of doing that certification, how long is it?
It's intense, right? And I do want to tell your listeners this, because they can get certified on both sides. They can get certified with SBA, or they can get certified with the Women Business Enterprise and the National Minority Supplier Diversity Council. Let me quickly explain the two. Okay. One is that everything I told you with SBA is for the government side, but it also applies to just getting your business in order. Everything with NMSDC and WeBank applies to corporations. Right. And some nonprofit organizations want that certification. And so that's that side of it. And for their certification, it is a cost. So federal is free. To work with corporations, there is a cost for that certification.
Is that an annual or a one-time cost?
No, it is an annual. You have to renew annually.
Okay. Good to know.
And then if someone would like to follow up with you to get more information on how they can be a part of your network, because Dr. Phillips, your net worth is attached to your network. If somebody wants to get a part of your network, how can they go about doing so?
Super easy. They can go to 1milliondreamsfoundation.org. 1milliondreamsfoundation.org.
Well, Dr. Phillips, I just want maybe one or two dreams. I don't need a million, so I'm going to follow you so I can tap in to some of those millions of dreams you're talking about.
Right.
There you go. That's our goal. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Front Page Jacksonville, National Women's Small Business Month. Though the month is in October, please know and understand you are not limited to just the month of October to tap in as a small business owner, as a woman, because Dr. Felicia Phillips just put you on game. So once again, Dr. Phillips, for someone who may have just tuned in, before we get out of here, if someone wanted to say, you know what, I want to be a business owner, but I want to do it the right way. Right. Guide our sisters one more time in 30 seconds. What are the steps they need to take?
First thing they need to do is go to sba.gov. And what they want to look at is how to register in sam.gov. The next thing you want to do is, once you look at everything you need to do, go to your Secretary of State and register the business name. Make sure the address is a proper address, not a P.O. box, not a UPS store address, a physical address, which you can get by getting a virtual office. And then once you get your certificate, you want to go to irs.gov to get your EIN so that you can now open your business bank account.
For us, that's called registering with sunbiz.org.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Phillips, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate you hanging out with us on Front Page Jacksonville.
Great information.
Front Page Jacksonville resumes on Hot 106.5.
833-758-1065 is the number to call if you'd like to jump in on the conversation. We just wrapped up with Dr. Felicia Phillips talking about National Women's Small Business Month. Prior to that, though, I was sharing with you that if you intend to go and early vote this week, or once the actual, voting process takes place, there are more than just the two candidates on the ballot that we have been force-fed over the past couple of months. There are more. And so I shared with you that Dr. Cornel West, he's representing the Independent Party. Well, what's his policy? West has said he would pressure Israel into agreeing to a permanent ceasefire in Gaza and to withdrawing from the Palestinian territory. He also said that he would cut off all U.S. aid to Ukraine and push to abolish NATO. He's pledged to enact free health care for all U.S. residents. He also stated that he would discontinue all oil and gas leasing projects on federal lands and is committed to the payment of reparations to all black U.S. residents. That's Dr. Cornel West, the presidential candidate for the Independent Party. Well, there's another candidate in the Independent Party that you may or may not have heard of. And you may not have heard of him because he's actually suspended. That's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He was also vying for the office of president. The third candidate, Jill Stein, she's on the ballot. She's representing the Green Party. Now, if you're like me, I thought it was just a red party and a blue party. An elephant or a donkey. I wonder what animal represents the Green Party and the Independent Party for that matter. I'm curious. Well, here's Ms. Stein's policy. She proposes a climate policy that goes further than progressive Democrats. Green New Deal, pushing the U.S. to achieve zero carbon emissions on a faster timeline. She has pledged to withdraw U.S. support for Israel and Ukraine. She's also in favor of guaranteed free public education from pre-K through college. Stein has also said she would cancel all medical debt as well as double the number of Supreme Court justices and subject them to an 18-year term limit. That's Jill Stein's policy. Now, just based on the two presidential candidates whose policy I briefly overviewed, Jill Stein and Cornel West, I, as a voter, would have appreciated being exposed to this information a lot sooner. Now, I know that as voters, it is our responsibility to research. It is our responsibility to go into the voting booth and cast our vote based on what we believe is in the best interest of what aligns with our beliefs. I understand that. I recognize that. But I also believe that the media at large has a responsibility as well. But that's where agendas come into play. That's where agendas come into play. Let me make this quick because we're coming up against time. Here's another presidential candidate that you may see on the ballot, Chase Oliver. Chase is representing the Libertarian Party. Oliver has called for simplifying the pathway to citizenship for immigrants and expanding work visas. He's pledged to withdraw U.S. from all foreign conflicts, including cutting support for Ukraine and Israel. He's in favor of eliminating the Federal Reserve. He's committed to federally decriminalizing marijuana and pardoning all nonviolent drug offenders, and has said he will push Congress to decriminalize possession and use of all drugs. So those are four presidential candidates, one of which is suspended, which is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Oh, and by the way, there's another. Her name is Claudia de la Cruz, part of the Libertarian Party. Before you cast your vote, do the research, better educate yourself, unlike I was when I voted this past week. Hey, thank you so much for hanging out with me for another week right here on Front Page Jacksonville. Looking forward to hanging out with you again next week. Stick around because Health Beat with Wanda P is up next. Catch you later.
Front Page Jacksonville, Sundays from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. For show episodes, go to hot1065fm.com. We are Hot 1065.